I saw this video last night.
Must have been out of her head.
And Logan Canyon here in Utah instantly came to mind. So Logan Canyon on its own at night is really creepy to me for some reason. But 8 miles deep into the Logan Canyon sits an abandoned property known as St. Anne's Nunnery, or St. Anne's Retreat. It was built in 1915, and originally it was a summer camp for the rich. Then it was donated to the Catholic Church, where it was turned into a spiritual retreat for nuns. It was eventually shut down and abandoned, and now it sits on 2.5 acres of Forest Service land. But the rumors about this place are incredibly creepy. Rumors about nuns who accidentally got pregnant and then drowned their babies in the camp's swimming pool so no one would hear them cry. The swimming pool is now empty, by the way, but locals say you can still hear babies cry deep in the woods here. There are other rumors about big dogs with glowing red eyes, murders that took place on the campsite, and eventually a real documented crime took place here, also in the swimming pool. Locals say this is one of the most haunted places in Utah, and whether that's true or not, I know one thing is for sure. The road leading up to this abandoned camp at night is genuinely terrifying, and it's a road that I've only driven once. This isn't my typical content, as what I'm about to tell you is mainly just urban legends and folklore with no real proof to back it up, but it is terrifying. And if you want to lose sleep tonight, stick around, lock your doors, and let's talk about it. So like I mentioned, this is St. Anne's Retreat, and it's an abandoned summer camp. It wasn't always named that though. And to really understand why this place is so creepy, we need to go all the way back and learn the history. So this property was originally owned by a man named Hezekiah Hatch, but I've seen many articles refer to him as Boyd, so that's what I'm going to call him. Boyd was a prominent businessman in Logan, and he had ownership in multiple companies like Hilton, RKO Motion Pictures, and Paramount. He built the very first cabin for his wife in 1915 as she really liked camping and being outside. And from that, they expanded to about 21 buildings. This includes 2 main lodges, 6 smaller cabins, a playhouse, a massive swimming pool, and some other cool buildings. At one point in time, there was even a theater and a horse stable, but those were eventually demolished. Boyd put in a lot of work to make this grand summer camp, and it eventually turned into a summer retreat called Hatch Camp for his other friends and family. During their operation, they hosted a lot of movie stars, government leaders, and millionaires. Like, this was a summer camp for only the most prominent and wealthy. Once Boyd and his wife died, this was passed down to their children, who continued the summer retreat. Eventually, in the 1950s, Hatch Camp was donated to the Roman Catholic Church, and it was then turned into a spiritual retreat and youth camp. They changed the name to St. Anne's Retreat, and a lot of people know it as St. Anne's Nunnery. Now, it didn't take long after the church took over this camp for really creepy rumors to start spreading. Again, I want to make it really clear that what I'm about to say is just based on folklore and urban legends, but nonetheless, it's still really creepy. So legend says that nuns were sent to the St. Anne's Retreat after accidentally getting pregnant by either monks or priests. How true that is, I don't know. But rumors started spreading that these nuns would then hide out here at the retreat for their entire pregnancy to hide it. And then they would drown their babies in the swimming pool before anyone could hear them cry. There's one story in particular that keeps coming up when you research this case, and it's about a young nun who, again, drowned her baby in the camp's swimming pool and then ended her own life on the property. Ever since then, it's been reported that if you go up to this property or even just near it at night, you can hear babies crying deep in the woods. And some say that sometimes you can see an apparition of a woman dressed in black roaming the property. This isn't the only urban legend said to haunt this place. Apparently, along with the nun rumors, St. Anne's Retreat was known to be the spot for satanic worship and hellhounds. A hellhound is a terrifying supernatural dog said to serve the devil or guard the gates of the underworld. Stories about these creatures appear in legends all over the world, but they are almost always described the same way: massive, jet black, unnaturally strong, and with glowing red eyes that seem to stare straight through you. Unlike wild animals, hellhounds are said to be intelligent and deliberate. They don't hunt by accident. They choose their targets. Many legends claim that seeing one is a warning of death, and hearing its footsteps or distant growl means something dark is already following you. Some stories even describe them surrounded by smoke, fire, or the smell of sulfur, as if they've just stepped out of hell itself. What's interesting is that locals claim to have experienced all of this on or near the abandoned property. Some say they saw Dobermans with glowing red eyes. Others say they never saw anything, but they heard what sounded like a big dog growling and smelled sulfur. forever. The Catholic Church eventually couldn't keep up with the care that this retreat needed, and with all of the local rumors and creepy urban legends going around, it was a known hotspot for people trying to break in. On several occasions, people would break into the property trying to investigate the rumors themselves while the nuns were there alone, which scared them. Eventually, they couldn't take it anymore and closed the camp, and in 1987, the camp was sold once again. It then became a youth summer camp for the Boys Club of Weber and the Salt Lake Center City Community Center. For a long time, this operated under seemingly good conditions with no complaints of anything scary happening, but the camp was sold once again to a private buyer in 1993. Then it officially became abandoned. Even though it sat untouched, disturbing rumors were still spreading about this place, like from people who snuck onto the property and saw what they claimed was the massive swimming pool, which had sat empty for years at this point, now filled with blood. Then the camp made national headlines in 1997 for a very real and very creepy reason. So it was pretty well known that teenagers would sneak onto the property late at night to go ghost hunting. And on October 10th, 1997, a group of 8 teenagers did exactly that. They waited till the sun went down and broke into the property. But shortly after, they were caught by 3 security guards armed with shotguns. Instead of just calling the cops like normal, these security guards took it to the next level. They herded the 8 teens into the abandoned lodge, handcuffed them, and tied their necks together with ropes. The guards called the police themselves and released the teens when officers showed up. That should have been the end of it. But later that night, a group of 30 more teenagers snuck onto the property. They had no idea what had just happened earlier that night, and I'm sure if they did, they would have just stayed home. Once on the property, the 30 teens were caught by the same 3 armed guards, who then forced them all into the empty swimming pool. They tied their necks together, zip-tied their hands, and then they told the kids that if they moved even an inch, an explosive would detonate and they would all be instantly killed. For 2 hours, these guards physically abused the boys and sexually assaulted the girls. But again, they called the cops themselves. What's really weird is that the local police labeled the guards as heroes, even though they had just committed horrible acts against these kids. The community, though, did not let this slide. This sparked major outrage, and eventually the 3 guards were arrested. They were then charged with 6 counts of aggravated assault. What's really crazy is the teens were all facing trespassing charges. But since this property technically sits on U.S. Forest Service land, they legally were not trespassing. So for the past 50 years, there have been many ghost stories and urban legends about this place. But the only evidence that a crime actually happened was this incident in 1997. Historians have dug super deep into the history of this property, and no murders from nuns have ever been recorded. Not to say that it didn't happen, because this place is really weird. It's just that none were ever officially reported. St. Anne's Retreat is now owned by a private owner and is private property, but he says he has plans to restore it as a future mountain resort. Sadly, the trespassing has not stopped, and people continue trying to break in. It's happened so much that the new owners have security guards 24/7 monitoring the land, and they have security cameras all over the place. There's also a Facebook page dedicated to blasting the faces of these trespassers. So just FYI, don't try and break in. It's mean and not cool, and you will get in trouble. I got a lot of my information from the Utah State University digital exhibit on this place. It's honestly super cool, so if you want more detailed information, go look there. Locals still say that the most haunted place on this land is by far the Hatch Children's old playhouse. I guess a lot of people have experienced some disturbing things there. Also, shout out to Zach Baggins. He featured the St. Anne's Retreat on an episode of Ghost Adventures, which is one of my all-time favorite shows. Anyways, when I saw this video, it immediately made me think of Logan Canyon and this creepy abandoned retreat. What's a place that's really creepy to you once the sun goes down? I want to hear your stories like this.